Good evening and welcome to the Sunday edition of SportsCenter. Alongside David Lloyd, I am Kevin Cork.
The sports world is in a state of shock right now. The Daytona 500 is supposed to be the NASCAR's brightest day. Today it's one of its saddest. Dale Earnhardt has been pronounced dead at Halifax Hospital this evening. It happened on this crash on the last lap of the Daytona 500. Earnhardt lost control of his car, hit the wall head on. He had to be cut out of his vehicle, rushed to the hospital. But Dale Earnhardt is dead, one of NASCAR's greatest drivers ever. We are joined now by Whit Watson and Jerry Punch for much, much more on this sad situation. Whit.
David, thank you very much. It would have been, should have been, a wonderful day for Michael Waltrip, who did break through and win the Daytona 500, his first ever career Winston Cup victory after 15 years of racing. Instead, the racing world mourns the loss of one of its greatest champions. Dr. Jerry Punch is with us on the show. And Doctor, first of all, thank you very much for taking the time. I know how difficult this is because you're very close to the family. But if you could, try to put into words what the loss will mean to the racing world.
Well, I'm not sure you can. I'm having a hard time just finding the words right now because Dale Earnhardt is, it's hard to say was, but was one of my best friends for many, many years. You know, it's ironic that people talk about Dale Earnhardt and how selfish he was on the racetrack, how much he cared about himself on the racetrack because he was a winner and he wanted to win when he buckled that helmet on. But those of us who knew him knew that he was really a very, very unselfish individual off the racetrack. And the irony is that today, for the first time that I can remember, and I've known this man a long, long time, you saw him be very, very unselfish in those final few laps. He had a car that could have made a move, in my opinion, following this sport for 20 years. He could have pulled up in front of Sterling Marlin, maybe Kenny Schrader, probably drafted by and won his second Daytona 500. But what he did in those final laps was what a father would do for a son. Ironically, that was his son right in front of him, Dale Earnhardt Jr., or what a brother would do for a brother. And Michael Waltrip was like the little brother that he didn't have. And he stayed there and ran 185 mile per hour screen as a pick, and he kept Sterling Marlin back there and Kenny Schrader and those guys who didn't get a chance to get up there and fight for the win, so that his two people in front of him, his son and one of his best friends, Michael Waltrip, who he had given a chance, did have a chance. And so it was very, very unselfish of Dale Earnhardt. And it's a move that many of us who've known him for years would understand. But it's very difficult now to understand because he's gone.
Now, Doctor, again, we want to stress that we do not have the full details of the injuries to Dale Earnhardt and what precisely caused his death. But in light of the recent stories regarding safety in NASCAR and in all forms of racing, there's been talk about the Hans device, which is now mandatory on ovals in kart, also mandatory in F1 racing. Do we now need to take, yet again, a closer look at issues of safety, protecting the drivers in stock car racing?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, NASCAR racing is the safest form of racing in all of sports, all of motorsports. There's nothing safer than those race cars and 1 3/4 roll bar tubing. We saw Jeffrey Bodin's horrific tumble at Daytona last year in the truck race. We saw a tumble for Tony Stewart today, an 18-car crash in the Daytona 500. The drivers walked away. Stewart was taken to the hospital and checked out, and basically is, you know, is going to be okay. What you can't predict is what happened with Dale Earnhardt, what we saw happen with Neil Bonnet a few years ago, what happened with Ernie Irvan at Michigan back in 1994, the abrupt right-hand turn up into the wall and almost head-on collision, that deceleration. In my opinion, I mean, the Hans device is a great device, and it's very difficult to talk about safety devices when we're talking about the loss of someone that we all cared about so much. But I'm not so sure the Hans device or anything at that point in time would, even as safe as these cars are, would have made that much different with that kind of massive deceleration at 185 miles an hour. Because typically you get a fracture involving in the head, and those are not survivable injuries. The injuries that are the accidents that look the worst, and people say it didn't look that bad, but the injuries that are the ones that are the survivable are the violent tumbles, because those are the ones where you dissipate enough injury and you may have a broken bone or two and a concussion, but these are the bad ones, the ones where you suddenly stop and veer directly into a wall.
Dr. Jerry Punch, again, I know it's been a very difficult day for you. Thank you very much for your time. A very difficult day for all of us in the racing world. We have lost a great champion. And, of course, much more on this later. David, back to you.
Well, let's take a look at just how great Dale Earnhardt was. These are his career stats. 76 career wins, the most by any active driver. 281 top 5 finishes, and 7 Winston Cup titles, tied for the most with Richard Petty. Earnhardt, just an incredible career, as you can see here, tied with the King as the winningest driver in Winston Cup history as far as series titles. His last Winston Cup win was at Talladega on October 15th of last year. He was second in the points race last year. The 76 all-time Winston Cup wins, the all-time winningest in terms of money, with over $41 million. It truly is a sad day, and clearly the Daytona 500 far overshadowed by the loss of Dale Earnhardt. Let's show you exactly what happened on the track at Daytona today. 195,000 on hand, packed house. A relatively quiet race until lap 175. Ward Burton's car gets loose, hits Tony Stewart, and Stewart gets some major air, starts flipping, lands on the back of another car, and then comes careening across the track. That starts a chain reaction. Jeff Gordon said it was like driving through a wall out there. 8 of last year's top 10 in the points were caught up in this thing. Stewart flipping over and over. He had a concussion. Just a horrific crash. 18 cars in all caught up in this. All sorts of damage done. And then later, check out Mark Martin's view of the crash.
It's the outside wall real hard. Gets hit again, and takes out.
Now, Dale Earnhardt was not involved in that. Bobby Labonte gets out of his flaming car. Steve Park pounding the roof in frustration. Tony Stewart, a little dazed, a concussion, taken to the hospital for further evaluation. 13 to go. Michael Waltrip leading Dale Earnhardt Jr., his wife Buffy praying for her husband. Waltrip had never won 462 starts without a win. And Earnhardt Sr. gets involved in a crash on the very last lap. Waltrip comes in to win. His brother Darrell Waltrip, you can hear him so excited up there in the booth. His wife Buffy overcome with emotion. Waltrip driving, ironically, Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s car. Michael Waltrip is the winner. He celebrated before he learned of the death of his boss, Dale Earnhardt Sr. Michael and Darrell Waltrip become the first brothers to both win the Daytona 500. NASCAR came up with a new aerodynamic package to improve the racing. 49 lead changes this year as opposed to just 9 last year. Waltrip's record now 1 in 462. He talked about the win before he heard of Earnhardt's condition.
I'm a living proof that if you just believe in yourself and you wind up in a great team like I have, all things are possible. I'm just so thankful to win this race. Dale Jr. was just so important. I can't state. I'd have never won the race if it wasn't for him. He had tons of runs where he could have pulled out and passed me. I made a couple of good blocks and got in front of him, and he pushed me right onto the front. And you know, I did my part, but he certainly could have got around me. 0 for 462 and reminded of it every day, but it never got me down. I didn't care what the record was. And the reason why I didn't care what the record was because I didn't believe it told the story. And I don't think 1 for 463 tells it much better.
It is not the first time someone's first win came at Daytona. Sterling Marlin broke out of a pretty long 0 for in '94. Derek Cope won the 500 and had just one other win in his Winston Cup career. Waltrip's best previous finish at Daytona was 5th. What should have been a great day for Michael Waltrip turns tragic. We'll have much more on Dale Earnhardt's death later in the show.
Dale Earnhardt died today during the running of the Daytona 500. It happened on the last lap of the race. He's actually trying to be a buffer for some guys out in front of him. He lost control of his car and hit the wall head-on. He had to be cut from his car. Later, he was taken to Halifax Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Earnhardt was running third at the time of the crash that took his life, trying to hold off a pack of cars that were behind him. His son, Dale Earnhardt Jr., was running second at the time, and his teammate, Michael Waltrip, was leading. Waltrip, of course, went on to win the race. That protective move by Earnhardt personified the man who was a giant in his sport, a sport which suffered a giant loss today. A few days ago, the RPM Tonight crew looked back at the great career of Dale Earnhardt.
Finally, is the champion of the Daytona 500.
The Intimidator. I remember my first year down at IROC in Daytona, and he was standing by one of the trucks, and he's got his glasses on, and he's got his arms crossed, and he's just watching everybody walk by and stuff, and I went up and stood next to him, and oh, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm just looking at everybody.
Dale Earnhardt was born to stock car racing in Kannapolis, North Carolina in 1951. His father, Ralph, was the 1956 NASCAR Sportsman Division champion and a popular man in the Winston Cup garage. Ralph died in 1973 while working on his car. For Dale, racing wasn't a way of life. It was life.
That's all I ever knew. I never did play ball. I never did do anything much in school other than hurried and got home and seen what was going on with the race cars. And it was a unique childhood. And that's why I think the love of racing and my drive to race was so strong when I started is that's what I knew. That's what I grew up doing. And it's just like I knew how to do it. When I sat down in a race car, it was just natural.
As natural as it was very unrefined. When he arrived on the Winston Cup circuit full-time in 1979, he ruffled more than a few feathers and bent his fair share of sheet metal.
Very, very true. Like a diamond in the rough. It's one of those deals where you see some of them coming and you say, if he makes it, he's going to be okay. But if he keeps driving like this, he ain't going to make it.
I got into Richard at Martinsville. I remember one race that I got into the side of Richard going in one, but I did it from about 10 cars back from where I started, and I passed like 5 or 6 cars getting in the corner to get to Richard Petty. And I didn't do it to get to Richard Petty, but just Richard was in the way when I got there.
He tolerated it. The owners tolerated the wrecks and all that stuff, and some of the drivers tolerated some of the stuff that he did at that time, and it all worked out.
I was listening when they were scolding me. Richard Petty, too, when he was scolding me about driving over the curb into the side of his race car.
He was listening, and he was learning. In 1980, Earnhardt became the first driver to win Rookie of the Year and the Winston Cup Championship in back-to-back seasons. After driving for Rod Osterlund and Bud Moore, Earnhardt signed on with former independent driver Richard Childress. The early going was rough, but a dynasty was in the making.
84 was a little bit of a tough year. 85 was even a tougher year. We blew up a lot of engines. I think we won a race or two both years, but Richard told me, he said, man, it's not really working out, and you're a champion. You know, if you want to go do something else, feel free to. And I said, no, man, we'll stick this thing out. Well, we had 85 was a tough year. We turned the corner in 86, won a championship, and then we just went from there up. It just was amazing.
From 1986 to 1994, Earnhardt and Childress won 6 championships in 48 races. They had the best pit crew. They won on short tracks. They won on speedways. And Earnhardt's ability to master the draft became legend. The result was a fan frenzy and marketing machine that the sport has never seen. He copyrighted his name and signature and turned souvenir sales into a standalone booming business. His career was like an all-comers meet, beating the likes of Yarborough and Petty to Wallace and Elliott. Fans either loved him or hated him. There was no middle ground.
Dale Earnhardt came along when Richard Petty was going out, and we needed greatly a new superstar, and became a different kind of a hero than Richard Petty was. Became the Intimidator, the Man in Black, and sold a lot of tickets for us. We got a lot of TV ratings up there.
But the Intimidator's Achilles heel was Daytona. He had won there more than any driver in history, but never in the Daytona 500. In 1998, on the 20th try, the sport's biggest star finally took the sport's biggest prize.
Been here a lot. This is the greatest time I've ever had in Victory Lane right here. This is it.
The Earnhardt name has gone from the dirt tracks of North Carolina to the title of a multi-million-dollar racing corporation.
To win the championships and race against Petty and people that he raced against, and Yarborough and Pearson and these guys, it's pretty unique, pretty awesome thing. All I can remember or think about is that he would have enjoyed this so much as what we've accomplished and what we've done, and enjoyed the things I've done over time. And I'd like for him to have been along the whole ride. It would have been neat.
Earnhardt was the leader among active Winston Cup drivers with 76 career victories. He also had the most wins at Daytona International Speedway with 34. A loss today for the entire sports world.
He had blood in his airway and he had blood in the ears that we see with basilar skull fractures, but really no other external evidence of trauma, no.
I'm sorry, could you repeat your name again, please?
Steve Bohannon.
Folks, there's no question this is a very difficult time. I think Bill France's quote that Speedway and NASCAR will put out here in a second sums it up for the moment. There'll be other press conferences and other opportunities to answer questions as we get more answers. But his quote is that NASCAR has lost its greatest driver ever. And I personally have lost a great friend. And that's Bill France's quote, and I think that pretty well sums it up for the NASCAR community right now.
Dale Earnhardt Sr., dead at the age of 49. We will have much, much more reaction to the death of this racing legend later on ESPN News.
In 26 years of racing, Dale Earnhardt has won 75 races and more than $37 million. He currently trails only Bobby Labonte in the points race for the Winston Cup title. And should he win the championship, he'll become the first driver to win 8 national titles, surpassing the mark he currently shares with Richard Petty. But this season, there's another Earnhardt driving into the record books, 25-year-old Dale Jr. Following his 1998 and 1999 Busch Series championships, Dale Jr. this year joined his father on the Winston Cup circuit. It took him only 3 months to gain his first victory.
That was probably one of the main goals for me, was to compete with him and competitively with him.
The father and son have competed against each other in 19 races this year. Little E has won 3, Big E 1. But the father has finished ahead of his son 13 times and has out-earned him by more than $100,000. Dale Jr. won his first Winston Cup race on April 2nd in the DirecTV 500. His father was waiting for him in the winner's circle to congratulate him.
Got to victory lane before he ever got there, and was waiting on him. That was a big time to see a brand new race team, and your son win his first Winston Cup race.
The Earnhardts weren't always this close. While Dale Jr. was growing up, Dale Sr. was often absent, either working in the garage or on the road.
He was racing a lot, so he really wasn't there to do the, hey, clean your room, brush your teeth, get up for school kind of thing. He never really got around to giving me direction until I started racing.
Today, Dale Jr. competes against his father, but also works for him, driving one of his cars.
If we're racing and I hang him out to dry or something to finish in the top 5 or to win the race, he gets a cut of that check too, so he can't be too disappointed.
But he can. And one thing Dale Jr. is finding out about racing against his father is just how much the elder Earnhardt hates to lose.
He's frustrated if he's not running in the top 4, and it has nothing really to do with I outran him or I beat him. He's just frustrated if he's not running up front because he feels like that's where he needs to be and where he should be.
Whether it's him or who, I don't like to run second, but sometimes you do, and you just got to pick it up and go again.
Dale Jr. also believes that he has heredity on his side.
Whether people believe it or not, the man can damn near see behind him, and I think that I've acquired a good percentage of that trait, and being aware of things moving that you can't see, and that's good to have and good to know on the racetrack because there's a lot of blind spots.
3 of Earnhardt's children have inherited their father's passion for racing. Daughter Kelly raced late model stock cars for 3 years before she decided to go into the marketing side of the business. His oldest son, Kerry, competes on the ARCA circuit, also in an Earnhardt-owned car. But before outfitting them with the best cars, Dale Sr. made his children learn the business on their own.
And the only thing he did was lay the newspaper down in front of us of an article of a new series starting out at a local track of ours and said, this is something y'all ought to try to get involved in. And so I had a go-kart and I sold it, and me and my brother took the money from that and bought the stuff we needed to race.
Yeah, he had a go-kart he sold for like $500, and I had some odds and ends I had together. We sold and got all the money together to buy the street stock from the junkyard.
He made sure it was safe. You know, he made sure the cars we drove were safe, and from there on out, it was our business what we did with them.
I mean, in terms of what Dale and Carrie say about getting help is the same thing. I mean, I didn't get that help either, but it was a way for him to get me to move home from college, to say, you know, come on, you know, we'll get you racing at Concord in the street stocks. And so, and when I got here and started doing that, well, that was the end of, you know, the help from him.
It's hard. I guess that's his way of raising me and allowing me to learn the hard way. You know, there were times where he just walked by and see me, and I knew that I wasn't doing it right, but I didn't know what to do it any other way to do it different, and it just could have been maybe a little easier. But I mean, that's probably I probably wouldn't have turned out the way I am now.
I wanted them to go out and be what they wanted to be, really, and at the end of the day, it was racing for Kerry and Dale Jr. And so now that we've made a commitment to it, yeah, we try to give them the best of everything in racing, and it's working out pretty good.
But the sport that drew Dale Sr. away from his children while they were growing up is what has brought them closer together as adults. Dale Jr. and his father are making up for lost time.
The past 4 or 5 years have been a lot of fun. Get to know him, getting to be close to him, finding out how much he cares about me and the rest of the kids, and how much he cares about his racing, how much he cares about our well-being, how much he cares about our success, how much he cares about his marriage. You know, I mean, find out those things about him, you really can get a good sense of what kind of person he is.
Thank you, Jeremy Schaff, for that report. That is a live shot of Daytona, Florida, the Daytona International Speedway. And when we come back here on ESPN News, we will talk with our reporter, Mike Massaro, with more reaction on the death of Dale Earnhardt Sr. Stay with us.